Welcome back to episode 167 of the Guardian Project podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and I know I don't talk a lot about my home remodeling here. I do a lot of that on Twitter, but I'm redoing our spare bedroom. So I went to Asphodel last week for some paint samples, and I could only find the gray merchant.
The best merchant.
The best. Honestly, I paint everything. I paint everything in my house gray. I need to stop. I have a gray living room. I have a gray kitchen. I have gray flooring downstairs, and I've been told that gray is on its way out. So like gray is the green and pink of like the 70s.
Okay.
So someone's going to buy this house in like 30 years and go, oh gosh, those guys in 2022 painted the entire house gray. I need to do everything different. But gray's so neutral.
It is.
Like green and pink is not. It doesn't fit with everything.
Well, but gray is also the combination of black and white, which Orzhov is not really neutral. So I don't know how you can stand.
They just want their taxes paid. That's it.
Are you saying taxes are neutral?
My house is full of taxes is what I'm saying.
And I'm your other host, Mike. And do you think they're ever going to print the other sizes of King Darien? They gave us King Darien extra large the 8th in this set. But what about like King Darien medium the 8th or small the 8th?
I want King Darien slim cut medium.
Slim is that referencing shirts or pants? Because you can tell I don't buy those kinds of things.
It references shirts because, well, I guess it could be pants. They usually call those like skinny.
Oh.
And I don't like those. They're so uncomfortable. But if King Darien was getting into clothing, I assume King Darien would offer all options of shirts and pants and cuts.
I would hope so. At least for himself.
Exactly.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast about Commander.
Our favorite Magic the Gathering format.
So we got the 2022 August Rules Committee quarterly update. There were no changes for any cards, and there were no changes to any rules. And yeah, so nothing was banned. And the announcement says, at the moment, there are no cards which we feel need banning. They recognize that there has been a fair amount of discussion for both Dockside Extortionist and Thassa's Oracle, but they believe both of these have been self-selected to appropriate tables, and that Dockside Extortionist is far closer to that line due to a recent uptick in like treasure-related cards, which we've talked about on the show before. Absolutely. And that Thassa's Oracle remains distant enough that they don't really consider it a serious cause for concern. And when it comes to evaluating cards for banning, it's not just what the card does, which they refer to its power, but what the card does to the broader format, so the impact in general. And they don't really see it being negative enough. They are also looking at a rules committee expansion, so we can look for that later this year. And they are also discussing one of the community's most talked about issues, which is untrusted games. So those in which you don't know the other people you're sitting down with. And I know that if you follow me on Twitter, I did have a pretty rough game the other day with somebody at an LGS who they complained they didn't want to play politics, and then that's kind of just what they did the whole game. Right. And it was very aggressive, everything. Yeah. It was when I explained what a card did, because when I don't know people, I don't know what they don't know. So I go, okay, I play this, it does this. But then this person would explain it over me. They would mansplain the card to the table. And I said, okay, all right. Well, you know what? It's one game, and we will move along. So They said that it's a tough nut to crack, though, and they don't believe that it's an issue that they can bam their way into solving. So, like, even if they're playing cards that are just not the right power level, regardless of whether or not the attitude is a different thing. So they said what they think they can do to help the players, or not just the players, but LGSs and event organizers, is really to kind of craft a guide. That like a living document that can help people get to where they want to go. And then finally, Rebel, Ben Wheeler, and Tim Willoughby are all joining the Commander Advisory Group. So that is super exciting. It was a good announcement. No real changes to the format, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so too. Happy to see it. We also have an update for the list with Dominaria United coming out. There's definitely some cool cards that are being put on here. I know I like Burning Inquiry on here. Coalition Relic is a pretty fun reprint. Not one we really needed, but kind of goes well with one of the artifacts that's being printed that we're going to talk about.
I like Orim's Chant. I think that's a really cool one. So for 1 white, it says target player can't cast spells this turn, and then if you kick it for a white, creatures also can attack. So it's a $20 card right now. So that'll be nice to maybe see the price come down. If you open one, you don't have to spend $20.
Yeah, there's a ton of cards on this list that I like. None of them are like super expensive. There is a Karn Liberated on here. Shieldred Whispering one. They've been doing, putting the Phyrexian counterpart of the new Phyrexian that they're putting in the set on the list. So makes sense to see that one again.
Helm of the Host is on here. That's a super popular
That is super good. Yeah. Good in competitive with Godo, and then good in literally everything else too.
When I see it come down, I go, we are going to be in danger shortly. If
the danger is nigh.
If we do not remove the thing right now, we're going to have some issues. So I also like Whirlpool Warrior. It's a card that wheels you, and then you can also sack it and wheel the table. So for the Locust God players, you got a really good card reprinted. I actually don't think the card was that expensive. I just saw it on the list and I go, I run this.
Yeah, I like that he does it right away. It doesn't require to tap. It's just like 1 red to sack it and wheel the table. So it's fantastic. Love that card.
Yes. Also, want to give a shout out to a listener, Jacob Hughes. Thank you so much for your email. We got an email last week that they found us through the Dads That Play Magic Discord, Magic the Dathering, who suggested a bunch of podcasts to listen to, and he liked ours a lot. And I'm so glad that you sent us the email. It made us feel really, really good.
It did.
But we also have a joke, right? We can't steal it as an intro because it's not our joke. So we have to say it though, and it is, I wear only blue and black now. It just looks better in Demir Roar.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm really upset that neither of us had thought of that in the past.
We really need to reflect on our jokes a little bit more.
Oh, that was another mirror joke. It was another mirror joke.
I had one before we go on to magic topics. If you're not aware, and I'll post something on Twitter, I lost part of my fence in a storm yesterday.
Yeah, actually, we're recording together, Coyle and I, today for the first time, I would say in at least 6 months.
Yeah, probably.
We are using the studio equipment from producer Ryan that we never hooked up because it was just...
It's cumbersome.
It was a lot of work to try and we said, you know what, we got our setup working and we know how everything adjusts, so we can figure that out there. So if anything's wrong with today's episode, it's the equipment, not us.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't do anything wrong.
And it's because I lost power. That's why I'm hanging out, because we had a bad storm. But I wanted to say that I think I must have made Mother Nature mad, because whatever I said, they took offense to it.
Yeah. And you have a dog, so I know that you're dealing with going potty on leashes.
Yes, even in the backyard on a leash.
It's a whole thing. I got very lucky that I was not affected, but like it feels like almost all of Southeast Michigan is pretty much out of power right now.
A little bit.
So the storm brought us together.
Brought us closer together. There's AC here. I love it.
There's AC in my house. Coyle brings over a bunch of things to charge. I got to charge my phone. I got to charge this thing. I got to charge that. I want to charge my computer. So he's here for my electricity. Let's be real.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what it's all about. But before we continue, we have a bunch of people to thank, especially our listeners and our patrons. Thank you all so much for coming back and listening to us every single week. We would not be here without you. If you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod if you want to do so monetarily. But if you want to listen to us and send us a comment or whatever, we also really appreciate that, like a lot.
Yeah,
so thank you so much for being here every week.
Yeah, if you're looking for another way to support the podcast, you can find us anywhere where you Google the Guardian Project podcast, whether that's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you could go on there, subscribe, rate, review, leave some comments, we really appreciate it.
Yes. Mike, what are we talking about this week?
This week, we have Dominaria United finally fully previewed. So we're going to talk about the set's mechanics. We're going to talk about some cards that we're planning to play from the set in our own decks. And also, we're going to look at some of the commanders, legendary creatures, or planeswalkers that we are going to be building from this particular set.
Let's go check it out. All right, Dominaria United is the next set that begins a 4-set story arc, including the fight against the Phyrexians. This is a Legendary Matter set with a lot of multicolored cards that has some new mechanics and returning mechanics. Actually, now that the set's been fully previewed, I really like the set, and very reminiscent of the original Dominaria.
Yeah, I would say so.
It feels like it's going to be fun to draft. I'm just sad there's no Slimefoot and Saprolings because that was what I drafted in the first set.
Yeah.
So let's start with the returning mechanics. So Kicker is returning a mechanic that allows a player to pay an extra cost for a bonus effect.
Yes. Is it always mana for that extra cost? Because I feel like, people always say everything's Kicker because it's an extra cost for an extra effect.
In actual Kicker, I believe it's always just mana. There could be an X, but I don't believe it's like Kicker pay 2 life.
Right. Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Who know? If you know, comment. Domain is also a returning mechanic. This is an ability keyword that modifies an effect depending on the number of different basic land types you control.
Yes. Now we've got some new mechanics. Enlist is a keyword ability that allows you to tap a creature to add its power to an attacking creature. So for example, Line Breaker Baloth. It's a 4/5 beast for 3 green with Enlist. So it says, as this creature attacks, you may tap a non-attacking creature you control without summoning sickness. You can't just tap it. It does require it to not have summoning sickness. Mm-hmm. When you do, you add its power to this creature until end of turn. So Linebreaker Baloth says it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So it's a 4/5. If you have a creature with, 2 power that doesn't have summoning sickness, when you attack, you can tap that. And then your creature is now swinging for 6 instead of 4.
I've heard that this keyword is like the new banding, but I think you can do banding while blocking.
You can. Banding is a very, it's very involved. I feel like if I just sat down and figured it out, it wouldn't be too bad, but it's like a lot of words.
It's a lot of words for something that's probably never going to happen again.
Exactly.
Except then we got Enlist, so maybe it'll happen again.
Yes.
We have Read Ahead, which is a new keyword ability on sagas that allows the player to skip chapters to get to the effect that they want on one of the chapters. The Elder Dragon War is an example that we have here. So it's for 4 mana, 2 red, has the Read Ahead ability with the 3 saga abilities of the Elder Dragon, deals 2 damage to each creature and each opponent. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. And on the third one, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So you can start all the way on the 3rd saga, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying, and get an enchantment enters and leaves the battlefield effect.
Sure. And it does specifically say if you skip ahead, any skipped chapter doesn't trigger at all. Right. So you pretend like it doesn't exist. I think this is very cool. I like the read ahead mechanic. I am a read the last 5 pages of a book person.
Oh, sure.
I'm the worst. I'm the worst. I read the very end because I'm a reader that always looks to see how many pages are left in like the chapter. Mm-hmm. I'm not a good reader. Because I get anxious and I go, if I read 4 chapters this week, I will stay on, I can finish the book in X number of weeks, but then I start the chapter and I go, all right, 26 pages and I got this today. And then when I'm done with page 3, I'm like, there's 23 pages or 22 pages left. And anyway, reading ahead, stressful, but also kind of nice. And next we have stun counters, which are now evergreen, and the rule reads: if a permanent with stun counter on it would become untapped, remove 1 counter from it instead. An example would be Impede Momentum. So it's a sorcery for 2 and a blue. It says tap target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. So instead of that permanent untapping, you will just remove 1 of those 3 stun counters from it instead. And then it also has Scry 1. So there aren't a ton of cards with stun counters, but now that they're evergreen, I expect to see them show up periodically in a few sets. And I actually think it's kind of nice. Yeah,
we'll get another Crystalline Giant later on, another set that has like 12 more counters on
another
it.
One of the option is also the arena version of it will then just add stun counter.
And shield counters from Capenna. It's going to be a very complicated, supposed to be simple and fun card to play.
Yes. And this set also comes with 41 new legendary creatures in the base set. So we're talking about Dominaria United. We are not this week talking about Legends Retold or the Commander cards, but we love the Commander decks.
Who doesn't love them?
Love the Legends Retold. So we might have to, after our next episode, maybe even cover Legends Retold because they're so fun.
Oh, yeah.
They're so fun. So let's talk about the cards from the set that we're going to add to our current Commander decks. My first card, and actually I'm going to be talking a little bit about Wizards today, is Aether Channeler. So this is a 2/1 human wizard that says when it enters the battlefield, I get to choose one, and there's 3 options. I can create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. I can return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or I can draw a card. So I like this a lot for my Kaza Royal Chaser deck because I run the card Aether Adept, which is just 2/2 wizard for 2 and 2 blue that says when this enters, return target creature to its owner's hand. So Aether Channeler is easier to cast because it costs 1 blue pip less.
Right.
It does the same thing in that it returns target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. It does say another, although I don't think I've ever wanted to return Aether Adept to my hand. I don't have anything that matters in that deck.
Probably not.
But this also lets me make a bird token or just draw a card. Yes. This is literally a strict upgrade from my Aether Adept. So this is going into Kaza Wizards.
Yeah. If you have like an ETB deck or something, like ETB Matters deck, this could also slot in there very well.
Rune of the Hidden Realm, Brago, King Eternal, even Chulane.
I've got my Abdul Adrian Candlekeep Sage deck. That's ETB, Livio, and Ludovec. Flicker deck is what I call it. That would work well. I mean, this is modal. This feels like a lot of the rare modal cards that we had from like Throne of Eldraine with, was it Young Prince that had like gain life? Or
Charming Prince? You could like scry 2, you could
gain life.
Was it bounce or creature? I don't remember. I did like, I don't know if he had 2 or just 1, but I did like that card. I actually run that card in a deck. So great card.
Super, super good. Okay, so my first card is you might be able to guess because I do have a 5-color Morophon humans deck. They printed another 5-color human. The previous one was Garth One Eye. That was like only 5-color in the casting cost human. We now have another, and that is Joda the Unifier.
This card is so good. I actually would build this as a commander.
Yeah,
it seems really fun.
It's arguably, like, in my deck, better than Morophon as the commander. The only reason I say arguably is because Joda the Unifier is free in my Morophon deck.
It is.
So Joda the Unifier costs Wooburg, so white, blue, black, red, and green. No generic mana on top of that, so it's a 5 mana value commander, legendary creature. 5/5 human wizard. This says legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control.
So it's a coat of arms for your legendary creatures.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's really good.
Into it.
Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. It also
has legendary cascade.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. In my deck in particular, I actually run the other Joda, which is
Archmage Eternal,
which allows you to cast spells for Wooburg rather than their normal casting costs. And if you're not aware about Morophon, you choose a creature type when it enters the battlefield, and spells you cast cost Wooburg less to cast. With this combination, you can actually cast like 2 and 3 mana legendary creatures for 5 mana for free.
Yes.
And then be able to cascade from the 5 mana value rather than from the like 2 mana value that Lucas Sharpshooter has, aka Bjorna Nightfall Alchemist, or Will the Wise is also 2 mana, aka Wernog Rider's Chaplain. To be able to cast those for 5 and actually get some really good value off of it, can't complain.
Yeah. My next card is the World Spell. So this is a mythic saga with a read ahead. So the World Spell costs 5 green and has a first and second chapter that both say, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-saga permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order. And then chapter 3 says, put up to 2 non-saga permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So I'm going to be playing this in my Satsuki, the Living Lore deck. So Satsuki is a saga deck. I don't know if it's particularly good, but I have won a few games, and I think it's fun to see when it happens because a lot of people didn't put this together. It was like one of the, probably the lesser built. I'd have to actually look at the number from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, but it's fun. So Satsuki, the Living Lore, cares about lore counters. So you can tap Satsuki to put an extra lore counter. So you're adding chapters to your sagas. Mm-hmm. So this one is kind of nice because you can skip directly to the last one. And I will say it does feel a little bad, right? Because it's non-saga cards.
Sure.
But when I looked at my actual Satsuki deck, I'm running only 13 instants and sorceries, and then I have 22 sagas, so 35 cards total. And since you're revealing seven cards 2 times for chapters 1 and 2, I don't think you're going to ever whiff and reveal 0. Like I've played cards like in my Super Friends deck where it's called the Gatewatch and you get to, and that one, it's like, well, I'm only running 20 cards, like, or 25 Planeswalkers or something. It's like, ooh, you whiff. That feels really bad.
Yeah.
But this can just grab lands. It just says non-saga. So I'm excited to play the World Spell there. I don't know if it's going to stick around, but I don't think 7 mana is too much, especially because when I'm playing Satsuki, my conversation, the actual pregame chat is like, I need a long time. Like this deck's not, I need you to be playing decks that aren't doing much till, turn 7, 8, and we can start wrapping stuff up after turn 10. So I don't feel so bad, but the World Spell's cool. And I think Read Ahead is a cool new mechanic for the actual card type sagas.
Yeah. I even have a deck for this one. My Luna Apex of Wishes polymorph deck, just to be able to find this right away, is a good way to actually cheat spells out of my hand. Because spells in your hand in a polymorph deck are typically quote unquote uncastable. They're just too high of mana value. That's not really what the deck is intending to do. So this is a way where you can hit it and be able to get everything out of your hand. Really like this one. I have an uncommon as the next one, which was very difficult for us to put these lists together.
I will say we usually find a bunch of commons and uncommons that are like, this fits really well in She-Ray, or this silly card fits here. But most of our cards today are rares and mythics. Yeah. But our dear friend, Mr. Bevers, actually had this as his preview card. You were in the preview video for this. So this was super exciting. And I left it off mine because you were talking about this. So tell us what Relic of Legends is.
Yes. Relic of Legends is a 3 generic mana artifact that has tap. Add 1 mana of any color.
That's good.
Yeah. Why not? It's Commander Sphere without the card draw. Sacrifice
so far.
It also has an ability that says tap an untapped legendary creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. So this is like almost like Honor Worn Shaku, which says you get to tap an untapped legendary permanent you control to add a colorless. Or actually it untaps Honor Worn Shaku, which taps for only colorless. But this one you get colored mana, and it's legendary creatures. This one is definitely going into a few decks of mine. The ones that are like obvious for I need it for to tap. Sometimes you just want to tap your legendary creature. My Ellen Harbury's Busybody Haunted One deck. Haunted One is a background that grants creatures that share a creature type with your commander. When your commander gets tapped, +2/+0 and Undying. So to be able to tap Ellen Harbury's...
that's really good.
Yeah, you can get around Summoning Sickness, which is the big thing. But then it also nets you a mana while you're doing it. The netting 1 mana could be relevant. I have a Jahzzar with Eyes Open mono white Planeswalkers deck. Jahzzar has Vigilance. So this might also be an artifact that you include in any of your commander decks that have Vigilance. That way you can swing with your commander still and then use it for mana later. And then I mentioned my Morafon deck. It's a humans, legendary creatures matters deck. At any point I could have like 15 legendary humans on the battlefield. And so if they have Summoning Sickness or they enter the battlefield tapped because someone has a Blind Obedience out or something, I'll get just 15 extra mana. Or no, if they enter tapped, I don't get to do that. But if they have Summoning Sickness, yes, then I get 15 extra mana, which helps me continue to human cascade with the new Joda.
This is an uncommon that's already at $2. And it's a solid card for Commander. I expect to see it a lot.
Yes,
so
most definitely.
Forward to that. I have another wizard. This is Academy Lore Master. So for 2 blue, so just blue, you get a 2/3 human wizard that says at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player may draw an additional card. If they do, spells they cast this turn cost 2 colorless extra to cast. So it's actually a card that's again going to go in Chasm Royal Chaser. It kind of acts like a Howling Mine or Kami of the Crescent Moon, but is really masked behind subconscious favor. So people getting card advantage from you. I always want to see a Howling Mine or Kami of the Crescent Moon on an opponent's battlefield. I don't want it myself. I want you to play it so I can take advantage.
Free value. But this is a wizard. So 1, it works with my commander really well.
I get the card draw as well. And I'm not really going to, I feel like I'm not going to, I guess, have an issue with that downside because I'm playing more than half of my instants and sorceries in that deck are instants.
Okay.
So I'm just going to cast them. I'm just going to pass the turn,
Right.
and it helps me keep cards in my hand because a lot of my cards are single use, and I'm looking to build up to a big Comet Storm or a big Fireball. So I need that card advantage. I like this, and I think it helps speed games up or keep games moving, and people enjoy having extra card draw. So if someone does draw bad, I don't mind giving them a card or two.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going.
I imagine even late game, you might be like, well, I just need an extra card. I've got like 1 billion mana and 12 twiddles in hand. I can afford the 2 extra generic mana on the one spell I plan on playing this turn.
Exactly. And I typically don't swing at the person who is also playing cards like Howling Mine. So I'm hoping that favor is repaid. And if you play against me, don't swing at me.
Just don't swing at me.
Just don't swing at me. It's fine. I'm giving you card draw.
Every Nekusar player out there is saying, oh, this is what I've been saying the whole time.
The whole time. Don't swing at me.
All right, so there is the only other card that's going in my Illuna Apex of Wishes deck. We got another polymorph type effect. This one is called Chaotic Transformation. For 6 mana, 5 and a red, you get a sorcery that says exile up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, up to 1 target enchantment, up to 1 target planeswalker, and or up to 1 target land. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of the library until they reveal a card that shares a card type with it. Put that card onto the battlefield and then shuffle. So I have 3 artifacts and 7 enchantments and 13 creatures and ways of making token artifacts and token creatures. So I could potentially turn this into like a mass polymorph type effect, which just, does polymorph, but for your entire board. So if you have like 20 creatures, you get to polymorph 20 times. But this one is more particular. The 7 enchantments are all really big, like token doublers, like your parallel lives and stuff. I even have a saga in here, Kiora Best the Sea God, which is a really good control saga that costs like 9 mana or 8 mana. So this one is always going to hit really good permanence. It's still a good ability, even if you only have 1 creature, because at the very least, it's still a polymorph effect. And then you can also technically like untap one of your lands by sacrificing your land and getting a new land. You don't get to choose what type it is, but maybe sacrifice your basic forest. And what's the downside? Another basic forest, mountain, or island? Why not?
So you can polymorph up to 5 cards here.
I don't have any planeswalkers.
No planeswalkers.
In my
so
deck.
It'll be for your build. It's up to 4.
Up to 4, most likely 3. I don't.
You don't have a lot of artifacts.
Right.
You said you didn't have a lot. This is a great card.
Oh yeah. It's really fantastic. It was difficult for me to pick between this and the world spell to talk about for Illuna. So thanks for bringing up the world spell.
You are so welcome. Now, you didn't have any planeswalkers in your deck, but I want to talk about a planeswalker that I'm going to add to my deck full of planeswalkers.
Okay.
I do have a Joda deck, but not the new Joda. It's the old Joda. So Joda Archmage Eternal. But we got a new planeswalker that also has a new planeswalker, WinCon. So this is a Johnny Sleeper Agent. So I hope you've read the story, but Johnny has been completed.
Yes.
He is a sleeper agent.
His other eye got fixed.
Yes?
That's the important part. He has a robot eye.
Yeah. Oh, robot eye now.
Yeah.
So Johnny is a planeswalker for 1 colorless, 1 green, a hybrid Selesnya Phyrexian mana. So you can either pay 2 life or a green or a white, and then also a white mana. So we got to see this first with Tameo back in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Now they took our Ajani from us. And Ajani has completed. If you do pay life for Phyrexian mana, it will enter with 2 fewer loyalty counters. So it starts at 4, but if you pay life instead of a mana, it's going to come in at 2.
Right.
With 3 mechanics, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it onto the bottom of your library. -3, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among up to 3 target creatures. They gain vigilance until end of turn. And then -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, target opponent gets 2 poison counters.
Nice.
And as soon as they get to 10, they lose the game. So I am running a 5-color Planeswalker deck. I don't play it too often because sometimes it does take really long turns. I don't think I've played it on stream this year for that exact reason.
Sure.
It's just, I don't want to have people just watch me play for, 15 minutes. And then other times you've gone, Andy, can you just win?
Yes.
I literally see it. You have it on the board and I didn't see it because there's so many planes. And there's multiple ways to do it.
Definitely.
In the deck. So this one I think works because I'm running cards like Conflicts, so I can search for a white, blue, black, red, and a green card. If I can grab myself a Doubling Season off the green and a Johnny off the white, I can play this a Johnny, ultimate it immediately, and then I have ways where I can just cast out all of my Planeswalkers.
Right.
It might only take out one person with the poison counter. I fully don't expect to take out everybody with the poison counters, but I guess if I had the turns, like with board wipes or something, I could. But also I just like having alternate win cons and being able to take somebody out. So I think a Johnny fits really well into a Planeswalker deck or a Super Friends deck, as they're referred to. So if you have one, I do like this card. Just, I think it's one of those, be conscious of be conscious of everyone's time. And that's the reason I don't play it too often.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some green-white, like focus on doubling season type effects where you double your tokens and counters that would take this and go like, oh yeah, and then I'll cast 15 elves from my hand and kill everybody.
Yeah.
So why not?
Johnny's a lot of fun.
The next card, I don't know if other people are as excited about this cycle of lands that I am, but one particular card in this cycle of lands, we're getting a whole 10 cards of dual lands that enter the battlefield tapped.
So they're like gates. They're just not gates. They enter tapped, but you can search for them because they have 2 basic land types on them.
Right. And the one I'm particularly excited about is Sunlit Marsh, which is the Plains Swamp one. Because Andy, you and I were talking earlier as I was building a deck for one of the new legendary creatures in the Commander decks, which is Varric Warp Sengir, allows you to double activated abilities where you have to pay life to do them. And so a lot of people are looking at fetch lands that you pay 1 life, you'll be able to search for 2 lands. In the black-white colors, there was only 2 cards you could fetch other than Scrubland. I don't count that one.
So there's 3.
There's
3 in Commander, but one of them is really expensive.
Yes. So it's nice to just have another option. Obviously, it would have been really nice if they like finished the Amonkhet cycle of lands, which had cycling and was fetchable, or the Zendikar cycle of lands that came in untapped if you control 2 or more basics.
I think those were called Tangle lands?
I have no idea.
Bicycle 2. I don't know. There were so many names for those.
It's not bad.
It's been a long time though. Has it been 5 years since Amonkhet and 5? Yeah. No, it's been more because it's been 5 years since Ixalan. I think we talked about, but we're going back obviously.
Well, Amonkhet was only like 2. Was the set before Ixalan?
So it's probably been 5 years, and it's been then even longer since Battle for Zendikar.
It was 2017 spring that Amonkhet came out.
And Battle for Zendikar was before that.
Yes.
I don't know the year.
Battle for Zendikar was before I started playing Magic.
Right. And so they haven't finished these cycles. So I do appreciate that you said, well, it would have been nice if they had just finished them. But giving us more fetchable black-white lands for you is great.
Literally one more is the best I could have for that deck right now.
So I mean, I will play them. Yeah. If you're running fetch lands already, it doesn't hurt. Unless you need lands that come in untapped, I don't mind tap lands. And I think I've been able to maybe even change and regulate the power level of some of my decks by having just lands come in tapped.
I mean, a lot of people even like playing cards like Crypt Gas, which doubles your swamp production in Orzhov decks, which makes sense because it was actually printed in Ravnica as an Orzhov creature. So, having more swamp planes allows you to not miss on those mana doubling effects too.
Yeah. So the next card here is this is hard because I love this card, but I also, it feels very much like, ooh, this is going to be played in everything. There's very few cases where you wouldn't want to play this, but this is Plaza of Heroes. It's already at almost $11. The set's not out yet. And it's a land with...
And it's just a rare. It's not a mythic or anything.
Right, but it fits in every single deck in existence. So it is a land with four abilities. You can tap for colorless. You can tap to add a mana of any color to spend only on legendary spells. You can tap to add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control, and then it has pay 3, tap it, exile it, target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So you can use it for colorless anytime. You can use it to spend mana on your commander. Every deck has a commander, so
Yep.
you can spend on the commander. Once the commander's out, you now have a command tower, essentially, because the command tower taps for any color that your commander could be, and then you have a protection land for your commander. It works with every single deck. I mean, I don't like saying that I want to buy 30, but I
Sure.
don't have that kind of money. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have that kind of
Sure.
money. But it's already at 11. There's no way this card is going to be an affordable card.
Yeah, we talked about this before the show, and we brought up very niche corner cases where you wouldn't use it, like if it was a commander that cared about controlling forests or something. But during this conversation, I thought it does say. It doesn't say in the color identity of legendary permanents you control.
Correct.
So like Morophon, it only produces colorless.
Correct. Najila, it only produces red.
Right.
For Tatsunari, it only produces black.
Mm-hmm.
But it still has pay 3, and you can give your creature protection, essentially. Yeah. So I don't see how this just doesn't fit into every deck, because
I don't disagree.
It's corner cases. So my notes, listen, we like the positive spin here. My notes literally say homogenization, blah, blah, blah spiel, right? Yeah. Because it's like, that's where we are. Yeah. And it feels bad, but also I love it. So give me 10.
Yeah. Why not?
But I don't want to spend $100.
So give them to me in all of the boxes that we bought.
Exactly. Let me open multiple per packs that I open.
Why not? All right. So my last one on here, I thought I would end with a really fun one. And this is, everyone's talking about building this as a commander themselves, but I'm going to put this in the 99, and that's Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief.
And I appreciate it's going into the 99 because a lot of them are based around the discussion of mutate, which in my opinion is still one of the most confusing mechanics and hard to manage. Mm-hmm. And every time it comes up on one of our streams, we literally have to either ask a judge who's in chat, like Chris, or we have to Google, and then we did it wrong or something. Uh-huh. So I appreciate it's not your commander.
Yes, and it's not going in any deck with mutate either, so no worries there. But Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief, for a green and a blue, you get a 2/1 fairy rogue with flying, legendary creature fairy rogue with flying. This is whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief, you may copy that spell. The copy targets Ivy. So this one is going to be going into my Ikra Shiriki the Usurper and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces Sultai legendary creature clones deck. So we take advantage of Sakashima of 1,000 Faces ability to say that we ignore the legendary rule so that we can have as many copies of legendary creatures as possible. And using cards like Quasi Duplicate and Irenicus's Vile Duplication, which are targeted clone spells. So Quasi Duplicate for 1 blue, you get create a creature token that's a copy of target creature you control with Jumpstart, so you can cast it from your graveyard by discarding a card as well. And then Irenicus's Vile Duplication is a 4 mana, 3 and a blue sorcery to create a token copy. It's a copy of target creature you control, except the token has flying and isn't legendary. If that creature is legendary, I don't really care if it's legendary or not in my deck because of Sakashima.
Right.
But by using those 2 spells and targeting my Ikra Shidiki like I would, I'm also going to get multiple copies of Ivy.
Yeah.
So if I use Quasi Duplicate twice and Irenicus's Vile Duplication, and I get copies of all those Ivies, I'm going to have 8 copies of Ivies before I resolve my kicked Right of Replication, which is going to create 5 of those tokens. Or 5 clone token copies, and then it'll be 5 times 8. So I'll have 40 copies of Ivy. I don't have a way to like pump them. I don't have, is the new Kamigawa, mirror box. Doesn't that act as like a coat of arms for legendary creatures that share a name?
I think it's coat of arms for non-legendary, or for any creature that I'm not actually sure. I can take a look.
But I don't run cards like that in the deck, so it's really just having 40 2/1 flyers. But 80 power in the air is usually pretty good. And if someone casts a Path to Exile on any creature, I can be like, I'll take 10 of those. I'll take 10 basic lands.
Yeah, that's great. So Mirror Box says each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1, but then it says each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature shares a name. But either way, if you have at least 40, they're still legendary tokens. Yes. So they're still going to get +1/+1. So there's still 3 3s, 3 twos, right? It's a 2/1.
It's a 2/1, so there'll be 3 twos.
Either way, that's enough to. If you make that happen,
Yeah.
the game's gonna end.
I hope so. At
Mirror
least
Box
one
is-
person's life will end.
I'm not sure. I mean, you actually, Mirror Box might not be a bad idea as a backup to your Sakashima, just to give your legendaries +1/+1 for 3.
Yeah, it's not a terrible idea. I have learned to make clone copies of my Sakashima rather than of the legendary creatures so that I can ignore the legend rule like 12 times over, but it's not bad to have that backup. I haven't run that deck out in a while though, so maybe with Ivy coming out, I'll slap it in the deck and we'll put it on stream.
Yeah. So let's talk about the commanders that are getting the most cards from the set that we have, which for me, I already mentioned is Kazza Royal Chaser. So it's getting that Aether Channeler and that Academy Lore Master that I mentioned. Not a ton of new cards for my decks. I feel like this is a set where I would want to play with a lot of new decks, but not a ton of stuff that I said, you know what, this really belongs here. But I could find corner cases for probably a few cards.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
How about you?
I was able to find like 5 or 6 cards for all of my decks. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, no, it was really good. And coming out of the woodworks, we talked about it a little bit. I said my Morophon deck is getting a ton, my Jahzzar deck is getting a ton, and those are probably going to be one of those two is probably going to be my pick. Didn't end up being that. We got a lot of new tech for Henzi Toolbox Tori. This is the Riveteer's Face Commander from the Commander Precons from the new Capenna set that cares about creatures with mana value 4 or more in the Jund colors because it gives them Blitz. And Blitz makes it so that you can cast it with Henzi. You can cast cards for their Blitz cost. Their Blitz cost is their mana cost. And then Henzi will reduce the cost by 1. Reduce the cost by 1 for each time Henzi was cast onto the battlefield. So we looked at a lot.
Big stuff in black, red, green.
That's
pretty much what it is.
That
and
is the whole deck.
The deck works, and I will say, I just want the Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos removed, but I love everything else it's doing.
There might be, we did get Chain Devil a little while ago, the first 4 mana Edict creature. So maybe we can take the other edicts out in order to replace them with some of these really,
honestly,
really
the deck
cool
works
cards.
really well with them. So, and I don't see these cards enough. So, I mean, I don't see them a lot, not enough,
Sure.
but I've seen them enough.
You've seen them enough.
But I think that the deck works and it fits really well. So what'd you get for Henzi?
So the first 2 cards here are actually going to be ways to cheat out cards even more. So we have a cycle of cards that are allowing us to pay 2 life rather than 1 color pip in some of our creature cards. And we're going to pick Defiler of Flesh and Defiler of Vigor to go in this deck. Defiler of Flesh for 2 black. You get a Phyrexian Horror 4/4 with Menace that says an additional cost to cast black permanent spells. You may pay 2 life. Those spells cost black less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of black mana you pay. And whenever you cast a black permanent spell, target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains Menace until end of turn.
Nice.
And honestly, I didn't love that last ability of how it's only temporary +1 and temporary Menace. But in Henzi, you're only going to have temporary creatures anyways.
Correct, because they're going to get sacked because of Blitz.
So being able to have like a 6 mana creature that's being reduced by 1 from the colorless from Henzi's ability and then reduced by another black to pay 2 life. I don't really care about my life total. I'm trying to end the game as fast as possible in that deck. So I'll be able to cast more creatures per turn. And on top of that, you get Defiler of Vigor, which is the green version. So for 3 green, you get a Phyrexian Worm. Worm creature type is important nowadays. You get a 6/6 Trample. This has an additional cost. You can pay 2 life instead of one of the green pips. And whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So this one, we talked about how the creatures are temporary and maybe the +1/+1 counters aren't that great, but Henzi is always like a target that can be killed by a lightning bolt. So being able to slap some +1/+1 counters on him is going to make him harder to kill. But also, if you get Defiler of Vigor out later in the game, when you can cast 4 creature spells in a single turn, all of them are going to come out with a bunch of more +1/+1 counters. It can act, just like a huge pump spell for you. So why not do that? And on top of that, we have a couple of good ETB and attack triggers. Silverback Elder, 5 mana.
This card.
This is great. Is it
so
mythic?
good?
5 mana, 5/7, so 2 green. This is whenever you cast a creature spell, choose 1, destroy target artifact or an enchantment, Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order, or you gain 4 life.
The first one is Aura Shards.
It is. It's
for
Aura Shards
creatures.
every time you cast a creature spell. So in Henzi, you are planning on casting like 3 or 4 creatures per turn. So you get Silverback Elder out first, and then 3 more triggers of this. It's just really, really
this
good.
Is so good.
Soul of Windgrace is the other one. So for 1 and Jund, black, red, green, you get a 5/4 cat avatar. It says whenever Soul of Windgrace enters the battlefield or attacks, you may put a land card from a graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. It also has 3 activated abilities that care about discarding land cards to either gain life, draw a card, or have Soul of Windgrace gain indestructible until end of turn. I don't care about those because Henzi's not a lands matter deck and I don't want to discard my lands.
Sure.
But the fact that he has an ETB and attack trigger and I can take lands from any graveyard makes it so that he's basically a ramp spell for me. So for 3 mana, I get 2 lands and I get to draw a card. That's like the best Kodama's Reach ever. I have a couple more here. So Threats Undetected is a 3 mana sorcery that is Gifts Ungiven for creatures, and that you get to look up 4 creature cards with different powers, reveal them, an opponent chooses 2, and then you shuffle the rest back into your library.
Right, and Gifts Ungiven is 3 and a blue, and that just says search for 4 cards with different names, and then really the same thing happens. An opponent chooses 2, you put the chosen ones in your graveyard, the rest into your hand. So this one's just for creatures instead of cards, period.
Yes, I was looking at a bunch of different decks where this might fit, like my Morophon deck or something, and it didn't work. It didn't work in anything but my Henzi deck, so I'm glad I found a place. Weatherlight Completed is a deck that we're probably both putting in all of our Aristocrat decks nowadays. This is a legendary artifact vehicle for 2 generic mana, 5/5 with flying with no crew cost. It says as long as Weatherlight Completed has 4 or more Phyresis counters on it, it's a Phyrexian creature in addition to its other types. Whenever a creature you control dies, put a Phyresis counter on Weatherlight Completed, then draw a card if it has 7 or more Phyresis counters on it. If it doesn't, scry 1. I'm not doing anything turns 1 and 2 in my Henzi deck, so getting Henzi out on 3, Weatherlight Captain the turn before. I'm obviously sacrificing all of my creatures because that's what the Blitz effect says I can do. So eventually I'm going to be either, or actually right away, I'm going to be scrying before I draw. So I get to filter my draw from all the Blitz. And later on, I'm just going to get to draw 2 every single time one of my creatures dies.
I apologize. I have a Nature's Claim in hand. You're not.
Okay, go for it. But I was curious on if any of these vehicle decks, I know the face commander for the vehicle deck from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I know you play the alternate commander for yours, but Kotori Pilot Prodigy, a 3 mana Moonfolk pilot. It says vehicles you control have crew 2. So you can actually give this completed Weatherlight a crew ability and crew it.
And there's a new red-white creature, I believe, that gives creatures crew 1.
Yes, Aster, Bearer of Blades. The brand new human warrior equipments you control have equip 1, and vehicles you control have crew 1.
Honestly, I love to see it.
Yeah,
give it crew. Hold my beer is what Kotori said. So I do think it's a very good card. Yeah. I don't think it's a card that anyone's going to want to remove. Right. And then once you get the 7 counters, it's just value. Yeah. Scrying is not bad.
It's not.
I complain about Scrylands, but scrying like 3, it's really fun to do.
Oh yeah.
You're like, oh, that's trash. Don't need that right now. Oh, that's a land and it's turn 7. So it's not nothing.
No, it's definitely not nothing.
It's not nothing. So finally, we're to the point where we're going to talk about the commanders that we would most likely build if we were to build a commander from the set. So I had tweeted the other day that Noyandar got shafted because there's Tatiova, Steward of Tides. Yes. So this is a 3/3 legendary Merfolk Druid for green, and blue. It says land creatures you control have flying. This is trash. I have to work for this. And then Tatiova also says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature token with haste. It's still a land. Forever. It's a land. It doesn't change back. This is not temporary. Noyandar is also not temporary. You're in blue-green. All I've ever wanted is a Bant Noyandar. I wanted to add green to it, but I'm not going to get that. Okay, I get it. I'm not going to get what I want here. So Tatiova just slapped Noyandar across the face, like for sure. Open hand slap. Said, no, I can do this better. I'm not sure which one's going to be better, but I think I have to build both. Being like the creature land guy. And I think it'll be fun because you can, once you get to 7 lands, you can scape shift. You get 7 lands, all of them become 3/3s with haste and flying. So, I mean, escape shift becomes a win con.
Right.
Because it's only 21. But this is assuming you've done things beforehand.
Sure.
This one also, I feel like with Tatyova, you don't necessarily have to build around lands. With Noyandar, I need to build spells to care about the lands. This is just like, that's just value.
Right.
How I view it. So if you're just ramping to get all your lands, you don't care. Like in Noyandar, I care about losing 1 or 2 lands that have become a creature is a problem.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
In Tatyova, I feel like it's not. I'm in green.
Right.
I'll get 15 more. It doesn't even matter. So I think I want to build this. And then we're not talking about them this set, but we favored heavily the Legends Retold. The cards in the set are great, but I think it was a home run.
Yeah.
It was a slam dunk. It was a touchdown.
Other sports references?
It was a hole in one.
Do you say Grand Slam?
No.
Home run, you said. Grand Slam's even more than that.
Is that getting all 3 people?
Yeah, it's getting
in
4
at one time.
4 runs in one bat. Yeah.
Okay, and what is it was all net. It was all net.
Yeah, nothing but net.
Nothing but net. See that's what
half court shot with 0 seconds.
That's what Legends Retold are. But I would build Jahzzar, Shaper of Sand. We've both talked about this. I feel like I'd be stealing your thunder, though, because it's like deserts and it's like Amonkhet. But Jahzzar's really fun. So it's a 3/3 with Desert Walk, which I don't think anybody's ever going to have a desert, I'll be honest, unless, I don't know.
We're going to give away our deserts.
I guess. Sure. You Harmless Offering? Can you Harmless Offering away a land?
I don't know if it can target.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But for red, green, and white, it also says you get a 3/3 human warrior. You may play desert lands from your graveyard. So some of the deserts have cycling. That's really cool. Some of them have sack abilities. You just get them right back. And whenever a desert enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 2/1/1 red, green, and white sand warrior creature tokens, which there are creature tokens for these now. So old OG Jahzzar players get the token now. So that's really cool. I think this is fun. Do I think it's particularly good? Probably not, because you're dealing with limited number of deserts.
Yes.
You need to play cards like Crucible of Worlds, Ramnap Excavator, things that let you, maybe Ancient Green Warden. I think that lets you play lands from your graveyard.
Sure
play lands from your graveyard or things to get them back. I love niche decks like this. And it just seems like a lot of fun. I used to be a tokens player. I think I'm moving back towards tokens.
Yeah.
I've been slowly gravitating away from combo back towards tokens. And this makes cool tokens that people aren't going to see very often. And I wonder how expensive these are. But I will say Jahzzar being a Legends Retold. So you had mentioned before we were recording that you can get them potentially 4 different ways because they're box toppers and in collector's boosters.
Yes.
They might actually be affordable. Jahzzar is just over 5.
Yeah.
So I can afford to buy a $5 card.
I even imagine that the Sand Warrior creature tokens are going to be as expensive as Jahzzar.
I would expect because there's a lot of people like me that want to have a bunch of the tokens. Now we use Infinite tokens. We have our podcast tokens. Not sponsored. But I do like laying out like 7 of the actual token. Or in this case, it would be 8 because you make 2. And you like to lay them all out. And someone goes, you brought 8? Yes, I brought 8. Yeah. Okay, I have them all.
Don't you only need 2? One that's tapped and one that's untapped? Like,
sure.
No, you have stun counters now. So now you're going to stun counter one of them. Now I need 3.
And no, one has a -1. Well, no, that one would die. Unless I have pump.
No, they're like 3/3s now. They're not 1/1s anymore. Aren't they? The Sand Warriors from Jahzzar?
They're 1/1 Sand Warriors.
But they're 3 colors.
3 colors.
Which could be important. If you have like creatures get +1/+1 for each color that they are.
Maybe that's the tech. Don't tell everyone about my tech.
I'm telling everyone.
I don't want my tech to spike.
There's 17 deserts, Andy. The tech is there. The tech is Scryfall says this is what my deck is because I have to build it with all of the deserts.
Yeah, so I think those 2 commanders are really cool. That's I will probably put together, even if it's just a budget Tatyova. And I know I'm saying budget with like Escape Shift, but like I wouldn't go all out. Sure. I just want to see how it plays and then be the land creature guy.
Maybe you can rule 0 Tatyova partnered with Noyandar or something.
That seems unfair.
Well, I mean, you got to cast them both, right?
I guess.
And I was going to mention that the Tatyova I think does less of a good of a job winning with Infect like your current Noyandar does, because it turns them into 3/3 elementals. So you'd have to turn it into the 1/1, the Inkmoth Nexus into a 1/1 flyer first. Then Tatyova would override it as a 3/3 elemental with haste, but no longer has flying then. And that's the only way you can keep Infect on it, I think.
Yeah. I don't think I would play with those cards though. I think in Tatyova, I just probably care about basics.
Yeah, because you just want to go wide.
I just want to go wide in that. Yeah.
So like we talked about, I too am way more excited about the Legends Untold, as well as the legendary creatures
Untold.
Legends Untold.
We didn't tell you about them.
Legends Retold.
Let's retell you about them.
As well as the legendary creatures that are going to be printed in the Commander decks, which there are quite a few. But if I did have to build one, I think I would upgrade my Dejuru mono white Planeswalkers deck into a blue white Planeswalkers deck using Sten Paranoid Partisan. So for white and a blue, you get a 2/2 human wizard that is a Sten Paranoid Partisan, enters the battlefield, choose a creature type other than creature or land. Sorry, a card type other than creature or land. Spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 generic, less to cast. And for 1, a white and a blue, you can exile Sten and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So just being able to have all of your Planeswalkers cost 1 generic less, opening up my bandolier of Planeswalkers from all of the mono white ones and cutting all the Gideons so that I can add all of the Jaces into it, or the Tezzerets. Blue is obviously a very strong color for Planeswalkers. You also get to play cards like Deep Glow Skate that are going to double the number of counters on all of your permanents, or any number of permanents that you have. It's kind of like the doubling season for blue, but you have to cast it after your Planeswalkers are out rather than before. But I also love the added benefit that Sten, you can cast Sten on turn 2, name artifacts, ramp out all of your mana rocks and everything, then flicker Sten and re-enter and start naming Planeswalkers. So although I'm not actually likely to build this, if I were to build a deck from the main set, that's what I'd pick.
I've been caught on bandoliers this whole time.
Okay.
Honestly, and I didn't know what a bandolier was.
Oh, okay.
And it is a shoulder belt with loops or pockets for cartridges.
Yes, lots of things.
Lots of things. So we should get shoulder belt. We should get bandoliers for commander decks.
I mean, you could. It would be very heavy, I imagine, if we had like 20 commander decks.
Fanny packs, but this one goes over the shoulder.
We've talked about fanny packs.
Okay, but if anybody would really buy fanny packs, if we ordered Guardian Project Podcast fanny packs, let us know for real.
Yeah, and what color would you want it to?
Would you want them green and blue? Would you want them just black with what if we did patches? We could sew patches on generic. Guys, we have so many things we could build. Friends, we have things to give away. Honestly, I think this is a fantastic set. I'm excited to see it. I wasn't thrilled to see Domain come back overall, but
I don't disagree.
It's not, because I immediately dismiss it, which is what a lot of people were saying. It's I don't play 5-color, and as a person who typically plays 2 colors, Domain's not doing a whole lot for me. But it's very fun in a limited environment, and I bet I'm gonna enjoy seeing it when people play some of these new Domain cards.
Yeah. Hopefully, Domain comes back in Modern or Pioneer, wherever it was seeing play after Modern Horizons 2 came out, because we got some Domain synergy there as well. We got a new Kavu and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we see it in some of those 1v1 formats. But I do think the max +1/+1 you can get from Domain seems to be 5. And that does seem a little underwhelming in Commander, because you can get +100 in Commander.
You can. So that's going to be it though for this week. So we want to hear, what you're excited to play and what commanders you're going to build. We have a ton of options with the base set. We have a lot of options beyond that, 20 more in Legends Retold. And then beyond that, you have the commander decks, everything.
Set booster exclusives, Jumpstart.
There's a cool Merfolk in the set booster exclusives that let you play cards, Merfolk from the top of your library. I would build a Merfolk deck. I didn't even talk about the Hexcatcher, Vidalian Hexcatcher this week. That turns things into Cursecatcher. I'm excited to play with a lot of these cards, and it's right around the corner. But next week, we're talking combos.
Oh, yeah, and there's a lot.
We're excited to talk about combos. So if you want to talk with us outside of the Discord, if you're on the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say outside of this podcast, but you don't all talk to us in the podcast. You're not here. You can do so on Twitter. You can find me at Andy Flory.
And you can find me on Twitter at WormCoilEngine. And as Andy mentioned, we do have a public Discord. If you're not in there already,
Get in there.
get in there. So shoot us a message or go find the link over on our Twitter
It's
homepage.
the pinned tweet. So if you're on Twitter, just jump in there. We have lots of people looking for games. We have lots of people just chatting about things. We have a whole Pokemon channel. We have general chat where I talk about landscaping that I have done. Just there's so many power outages.
Yes,
you know,
a missing fence.
missing fences, dogs and cats.
Yes.
But mostly it's all magic. So come hang out with us.
Awesome. Talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.